December 1941. While the world's eyes were fixed on the infamous attack on Pearl Harbor, another, equally audacious invasion was unfolding thousands of miles away. An event that would shatter an empire and redraw the map of Southeast Asia. This is the story of the fall of Malaya, a lightning campaign that took the world by surprise. Before the sun rose on December 8th, the tranquil shores of British Malaya were about to be violently awakened. Japanese forces, under the cover of darkness, closed in on Kota Bharu, right near the border with Thailand. The first landing began, not with a quiet infiltration, but with the thunder of naval guns and the roar of landing craft hitting the sand. On those beaches, the Indian 8th Brigade of the British Empire braced for impact. The defenders fought with incredible bravery, inflicting heavy casualties on the invaders. But the Japanese troops were relentless. They pressed forward through a storm of machine gun fire and mortar shells, wave after wave. The fighting was brutal, hand-to-hand in some places, but by noon, the rising sun flag was flying over the captured beachhead. This wasn't a single isolated attack. It was a meticulously coordinated invasion. At the very same time, other Japanese divisions were pouring across the land border from Thailand, sweeping into the northern states of Malaya. To cripple the Allied air response, elite Japanese paratroopers descended from the sky, seizing key airfields before the British could even scramble their planes. The British Far East Command, led by General Arthur Percival, was caught completely off guard. Despite warnings, the speed and scale of the Japanese assault were beyond anything they had anticipated. The Royal Air Force, equipped with outdated Brewster Buffalo fighters, was no match for the superior Japanese Zeros. Within days, the skies over Malaya belonged to Japan, giving them a devastating advantage. With their air power compromised, the British turned to their Navy, the pride of the empire. On December 10th, two of the Royal Navy's most formidable warships, the modern battleship HMS Prince of Wales and the veteran battlecruiser HMS Repulse, sailed from Singapore. This powerful squadron, known as Force Z, was on a mission to intercept and destroy the Japanese invasion convoys. It was a bold, almost desperate gamble. But without air cover, it was a fatal one. Japanese reconnaissance planes spotted the fleet off the coast of Kwanton. Soon after, waves of Japanese bombers and torpedo planes swarmed the majestic ships. The sailors fought back, their anti-aircraft guns blazing, but it was a hopelessly one-sided battle. Torpedo after torpedo slammed into their hulls. Within a matter of hours, both the Prince of Wales and the Repulse slipped beneath the waves, taking over 800 men with them. The sinking of these two capital ships was a catastrophic blow. In a single afternoon, British naval power in Asia was effectively neutralized, leaving the sea lanes wide open for the Japanese. On land, the situation was just as dire. Japanese columns, led by veteran troops and supported by light tanks, pushed south with astonishing speed. They famously used bicycles to navigate the jungle tracks and rubber plantations, bypassing British strongpoints and moving far faster than anyone thought possible. The British, Australian, and Indian troops were forced into a series of desperate delaying actions, fighting bravely but always being outmaneuvered. The first major land battle of the campaign took place at Jitra on December 11th. Here, Allied forces had prepared defensive lines, hoping to halt the Japanese advance. But after 2 days of ferocious fighting, the line collapsed under a relentless armored assault. The defenders were overwhelmed, their positions overrun. This defeat set a grim pattern for the rest of the campaign, a fighting retreat south, constantly harassed from the air and outflanked on the ground. The retreat became a grueling ordeal. Through places like Gurun and Camper, Allied soldiers fought, fell back, and fought again. Japanese aircraft were a constant terror, bombing and strafing every road, bridge, and retreating column. They targeted the infrastructure ahead of the Allied retreat, creating chaos and blocking escape routes. Under this immense pressure, morale, which had been high just weeks before, began to crack. The troops were exhausted, undersupplied, and facing an enemy that seemed unstoppable. By the middle of December, less than 2 weeks into the invasion, the Japanese were in firm control of all of northern Malaya. The daily reports reaching British headquarters in the supposed fortress of Singapore were grim. Each dispatch told of another position lost, another unit cut off, another bridge blown. Panic began to set in among the high command. Frantic efforts were made to stem the tide. Reinforcements, including Australian and Indian divisions, were rushed south from Singapore, thrown into the battle to try and form a new defensive line. They were fresh troops, but they were being sent into a failing campaign against a battle-hardened and confident enemy. The next major stand was planned near the Slim River. Allied commanders hoped this would be the place where they could finally stop the Japanese juggernaut. On December 23rd, the battle began, but once again, Japanese tactics proved superior. Their tanks, which the British had wrongly assumed would be ineffective in the jungle terrain, spearheaded the assault. They punched straight through the Allied defenses, scattering units and causing chaos in the rear echelons. The line didn't just bend, it shattered completely. The disaster at Slim River was the final nail in the coffin for the defense of the Malayan Peninsula. The road to the south, and to the ultimate prize of Singapore, was now wide open. The remaining battered and demoralized Allied forces had no choice but to fall back once more, retreating into the state of Johor, the final piece of land on the mainland before Singapore Island itself. By December 25th, just 17 days after the first landings at Kota Bharu, advanced Japanese units were already within striking range of Singapore. The swift and brutal invasion of Malaya was nearly complete. The fall of the peninsula was inevitable, and the stage was set for the final tragic siege of Singapore itself. What happened in Malaya in December 1941 was a masterclass in military strategy by the Japanese and a catastrophic failure for the British Empire. It demonstrated how quickly power could shift and how vulnerable even the mightiest empires could be. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time.